Trump targeted. This could be bigger than anyone realizes. Last night, April 26, 2026, inside the Washington Hilton, a gunman charged a Secret Service security checkpoint with weapons and multiple knives. Was the president targeted? What did Franklin Graham warn us about this event? But first, what happened at the Washington Hilton? Now here's where this story begins. We're inside the Washington Hilton, the main ballroom, the largest event space in the hotel. 2,000 people at round tables, 10 to a table, shoulder to shoulder. In the words of Fox News anchor Brett Baier, who was inside the room when it happened, the attendees were packed like sardines. The dais at the front of the room, elevated, visible from every seat. President Donald Trump at the center, the First Lady beside him, the press secretary, and surrounding them at tables throughout the ballroom, every member of the cabinet. Literally every member. And this was Trump's first time attending the White House Correspondents' Dinner as president. He boycotted it during his entire first term, 2017 through 2021. His attendance was itself a news event. The room was full because Trump was there. The security was elevated because Trump was there. And the shooter, as we now know, was there because Trump was there. But here's the detail about the building itself that most people watching last night's coverage did not know. Because the Washington Hilton has a history with presidential assassination attempts. And the history is not a footnote. It is a pattern. March 30th, 1981. The same hotel. Ronald Reagan, 70 years old, 69 days into his presidency, walked out of the Washington Hilton after delivering a speech to the AFL-CIO. John Hinckley Jr. fired 6 shots from a .22 caliber revolver. One bullet ricocheted off the presidential limousine and struck Reagan under his left arm, lodging 1 inch from his heart. Secret Service agent Tim McCarthy was shot in the chest. Officer Thomas Delahanty was shot in the back. Reagan nearly died. He lost half his blood volume before reaching the hospital. April 26, 2026. The same hotel. A different president. A different shooter. A different outcome. But the same address. The same building. The same corridor between the ballroom and the lobby where American presidents have been targeted before. John Roberts, live from the ballroom. This is where Ronald Reagan was shot after attending an event here. So obviously, that's something that has gone along with the reputation of this hotel over the decades. But the building is just the location. What happened in the next 90 seconds is what turned the most prestigious media event in Washington into a crime scene. Now, here's how it happened. Reconstructed from the live reports of people who were inside the room when the shots were fired. Because the reporters who covered this story were not watching it on a screen. They were under the tables. The boom. Brett Baier's account. All you heard was this big boom. And then, people started running. The boom came from outside the ballroom, from the lobby, from the security checkpoint, the barrier between the public areas of the hotel and the secured dining room. The checkpoint that required magnetometers, credentials, and multiple layers of screening to pass through. The checkpoint that was the last line between the public and the president. Cole Thomas Allen, 31 years old, Torrance, California, a teacher and tutor, a video game developer, a registered guest at the Washington Hilton, meaning he had a room in the hotel. He had legitimate access to the public areas. He was not an intruder who breached the perimeter from outside. He was inside the perimeter already. And at the checkpoint, the boundary between the public hotel and the secured event, Allen charged, armed with a shotgun, a handgun, multiple knives. He exchanged fire with Secret Service agents at the checkpoint. Fox News producers inside the ballroom heard at least 6 shots. One Secret Service agent was struck in the chest, the bulletproof vest absorbing the round. The agent is expected to recover fully. Inside the ballroom, the reaction was instantaneous. John Roberts. All we heard was the sudden rushing and commotion, and the Secret Service and all of the various agencies that protect people came rushing into the room. People were told to get down. The counter-assault team, the Secret Service's tactical unit, the operators who train specifically for scenarios where the threat breaches the inner perimeter, deployed into the ballroom with weapons drawn, scanning every corner, ready to engage if the shooter made it through the doors. Trump was whisked off the dais in seconds. Fire. The president and the first lady were out, as well as the vice president, in a matter of seconds. The entire head table cleared. The protectees evacuated through routes that had been planned before the dinner started. The Secret Service does not improvise evacuation. The routes are pre-mapped. The vehicles are pre-positioned. The contingency is rehearsed. And last night, the contingency activated. 2,000 people told to get down. Fire. The entire ballroom started to go under their tables. 2,000 people. Journalists, politicians, cabinet members, their guests, climbing over tables, ducking under tables, pressing themselves against the floor of the Washington Hilton ballroom. And, remarkably, no injuries inside the ballroom from the chaos itself. Roberts. The fact that I haven't seen anybody who's injured, considering how people were sort of climbing over tables and ducking down under the tables, really is quite remarkable. The shooter was neutralized quickly, engaged by Secret Service, taken into custody, hospitalized. He told authorities he was targeting Trump administration officials. The FBI raided properties linked to Allen in California. Authorities describe him as a lone actor. Motive still under investigation. And here's what Trump said afterward. Because the response tells you something about the man the shooter was targeting. Trump initially thought the bangs were a tray dropping. When he was told what had actually happened, he praised the Secret Service's rapid response. He posted security footage on Truth Social himself. And John Roberts reported from inside the ballroom the detail that captured the mood. The president says he's coming back. Coming back. To the same hotel. To the same ballroom. To the same dinner the shooter tried to end. The dinner will be rescheduled within 30 days. But the 90 seconds at the Hilton are just the event. What the event means is what this video is really about. 3 signs, and all 3 are already visible in the hours since the Washington Hilton. But before we examine the 3 signs, I need to show you the pattern that makes the Hilton significant beyond itself. Because the Hilton is not an isolated event. It is the 3rd event. And the accumulation changes what the events mean. We're looking at the photograph. You have seen it. The entire world has seen it. Butler, Pennsylvania, July 13th, 2024. Trump rising from the ground behind the podium. Blood streaming from his right ear. His fist raised toward the sky. The American flag behind him. Secret Service agents surrounding him. And the expression on his face. Not fear. Defiance. The first attempt. Thomas Matthew Crooks, 20 years old, positioned on a rooftop 130 yards from the stage. He fired. The bullet grazed Trump's right ear, missing his brain by fractions of an inch. The second attempt. West Palm Beach, Florida. September 15, 2024. Trump International Golf Club. Ryan Wesley Ruth, 58, positioned near the tree line with an AK-style rifle, a scope, and a go bag. Secret Service spotted him before he could fire at Trump. Intercepted. Arrested. The second attempt in 64 days. The third attempt. Washington Hilton, April 26, 2026. Cole Thomas Allen, 31. Shotgun, handgun, knives, security checkpoint. One agent shot. The vest held. The shooter neutralized. The third attempt in 22 months. 3 attempts. 3 different individuals. 3 different locations. 3 different methods. 3 different outcomes. 1 target. And here's the question that every person watching this should be asking. Because 1 survival can be called luck. 2 survivals can be called coincidence. But 3 survivals in 22 months, with 3 different attackers using 3 different methods at 3 different locations, requires an explanation that exceeds probability. The explanation is either extraordinary luck sustained across 22 months of repeated targeting, or it is something else. Something the Bible describes with a specificity that should stop every person watching this. But the 3 attempts are just the context. The 3 prophetic signs that follow moments of national shock. Sign 1. The nation consolidates around the leader. Now, here's what happens immediately after a leader survives an assassination attempt. And the pattern is so consistent that political scientists have given it a name. The name should concern every person watching this. Sign number 1. The rally effect. Political scientists have documented this pattern for decades. They call it the rally around the flag effect, the surge of public support that follows moments of national crisis or direct threats to the leader. The effect is temporary but intense, and during the window of intensity, the leader can do things that would not be politically possible without the shock. Decisions that require political capital, policies that require public consent, frameworks that require momentum. But the rally effect is just the first sign, the political surface. What the shock does to the spiritual landscape underneath the politics is the sign most prophecy teachers never discuss. And it is already visible this morning. Sign number 2. The awakening and the hardening. We're looking at 2 screens side by side. The left screen, Franklin Graham's public statement, posted within hours of the shooting, thanking God that the president is safe, calling the nation to prayer. The right screen, a social media feed, the same news story, the same headline, and the comments underneath, mocking the attempt, celebrating the chaos, politicizing the violence before the facts were established. 2 screens, same event, opposite responses. The split visible in real time, on the same platform, under the same headline. September 11, 2001. In the weeks after the attacks, American churches experienced the largest attendance surge in a generation. People who had not prayed in years were praying. People who had not entered a church in decades walked through the doors. The shock produced a genuine, measurable spiritual seeking. For weeks. But here's what happened after the seeking. Because the seeking did not last. Within 2 months, church attendance returned to pre-9/11 levels. And for many people, the people who sought God in the shock and then returned to their previous posture when the shock subsided, the return was not neutral. It was a hardening, because they had been offered the moment. But here's what the Bible says about the dual response. Because the split is not a sociological observation. It is a prophetic indicator, and the indicator has a trajectory. Romans 1:21-22. Because that, when they knew God, they glorified him not as God, neither were thankful, but became vain in their imaginations, and their foolish heart was darkened. Professing themselves to be wise, they became fools. When they knew God, they were not ignorant. They knew. They encountered the evidence. They saw the sovereignty, the survival, the protection, the pattern that exceeds coincidence. And they did not glorify God. They were not thankful, and their hearts were darkened. Not randomly. As a consequence, the darkening followed the rejection. The hardening followed the refusal to acknowledge. Romans 1:28. And even as they did not like to retain God in their knowledge, God gave them over to a reprobate mind, to do those things which are not convenient. God gave them over. The Hilton is another opportunity, another moment where the fragility of human power is exposed and the sovereignty of God is visible. And the response, awakening or hardening, is being made right now. By every person who heard about the shooting, by every person watching this video. The subject is no longer the president. The subject is you. And what comes next should concern every person watching this more than anything I have said so far. 1 Timothy 2:1-2. I exhort, therefore, that first of all, supplications, prayers, intercessions, and thanksgivings be made for all men, for kings, and for all that are in authority, that we may lead a quiet and peaceable life in all godliness and honesty. For kings and for all that are in authority, not for kings you agree with, not for leaders you voted for, not for administrations whose policies you support, for kings, for all who are in authority. The instruction is not conditional, it is absolute. And the instruction was given by Paul to Timothy, in a letter written while Nero was emperor. Nero, the man who would eventually execute Paul. And Paul said, pray for kings, intercede for those in authority, give thanks. The response to the Hilton shooting, for every believer watching this, is not political commentary, not investigation analysis, not security critique, not social media debate about the shooter's motive or the political implications or the electoral consequences. The response is prayer, supplication, intercession, thanksgiving. Thanksgiving that the president survived, that the agent survived, that 2,000 people went under tables and came out without injury. But here's the deeper application. Because every moment of national shock is a mirror. And the mirror does not show you the event. It shows you your response to the event. And your response reveals where you are spiritually. When you heard about the Hilton, what was your first response? Not your second response. Not the response you cleaned up for social media. The first one. The one that arrived before you had time to filter it. Did you respond with prayer or with political rage? Did you respond with thanksgiving that the president survived? Or with commentary about whether he deserved to? Did you respond by recognizing the sovereignty of God? Or by debating the shooter's motive? Did you respond by interceding for the Secret Service agent who took a round in the chest? Or by scrolling to the next headline? The first response is the diagnostic. The shock strips away the performance. The crisis reveals what is already inside. And what is already inside? The prayer or the rage, the thanksgiving or the sarcasm, the seeking or the scrolling, determines whether you are among those who awaken in moments of shock or among those who harden. The Hilton is a moment, a contraction, a marker on the timeline. And the marker is asking you a question. Not about Trump, not about the shooter, not about the Secret Service. About you, about your heart, about the response that the shock revealed before you had time to curate it. And the response, made right now, while the shock is fresh, while the mirror is still reflecting, is the response that matters, not the response you construct tomorrow, the one you had last night.